Hi, my name is Alonzo. Welcome back to our channel and to your nap session, which is your news around Panama. There's really one major story that we're going to need to cover here in the news, but it is an extensive story that requires a lot of coverage because it's a fast breaking news cycle that's changing by the second, and that is dealing with the Panama mining contract protests. But before we get into that, we do still want to remind you that we have enrollment for our Panama relocation online course, which does include over 50 instructional videos that are going to take you step by step through making your smooth, efficient move to Panama. We cover everything from A to Z, everything that you may see in these YouTube videos, but to a much greater depth of detail and step by step, starting with the history of Panama, the culture, the people, the demographics. We even get into the government structure. A lot of people overlook that when you move to a new country. You know, you got to understand how the government is structured and how it operates. And the story we're going to get into with the mining contract, it kind of shows that. It's another example. We also get into the banking system, details concerning that, Panama's economic stability. Another thing that people tend to overlook is the economy of a country. You don't want to go to a country and then have it just collapse. You have to understand, what the economy is based on and how it works. And then on top of all of the other things that you would normally look into, like housing, your costs, expenses, how to get your residency visas and everything. So we do have checklists that start as early as 2 years before your move. That'll take you through step by step what you should do from 2 years out, you're 1 year out, 6 months, 3 months, 1 week, all the way up to moving day. We also have an international relocation tool that shows you how to budget and compare your budget as far as your current budget to what your anticipated budget is going to be in Panama, depending upon your choices in terms of where you decide to live and things like that. And so basically it is a comprehensive, detailed step-by-step course. It is an online course. These are not live videos, so you don't have to be there at a particular schedule. It is an online course, so basically it's on demand. So the videos and the information and the PDFs are all available for you to go through at your leisure and at your convenience. So if you are interested, our website is PanamaRelocationOnlineCourses.com for more information, or you can scan the QR code that is on your screen. So with that, let's get into your nap session and a discussion on these Panama mining contract protests. We even want to put a video out on this when the news broke about the contract and the protest, but we did decide to wait because we wanted to gather more information. A lot of people were out there rushing to try to get something out there, but you know how we do it on this channel. We like to go into a lot of detail, take a deep dive. So we want to get all of the information available for you. And then every time we go to release the video, some new news breaks concerning it. And it's like, okay, dang, I need to delay this because I got to get this in here. But we're at a point where we really do have to go ahead and go with this. So you guys may recall in a previous nap session, we told you about Panama's deal with First Quantum, a Canadian mining company that guarantees them at least $375 million annually for 3 years. And so we shared this particular article with you at that time. So let's go back and take a look at that article. Here it is. So First Quantum to pay $375 million a year in royalties to Panama. This is something that we covered. At the time, we were not really aware of the level of opposition that was building against this particular contract. So since then, there have been protests. That was back in April when the government made the contract. And that contract is an improvement over the previous contract where they were only getting about $35 million a year. So, you got this corporate giant who was basically getting away with only giving Panama basically like pennies. So this new contract, at least they're guaranteed $375 million annually for 20 years, and it's renewable for another 20 years. However, in exchange for that, the company is also exempt from import and export taxes. So that's a big advantage for them. But moving forward, the contract was approved by the Assembly Nationale and the president on October the 20th. So a lot of people are upset. One thing that they're upset about here is that they feel like there was a lack of transparency, that it was kind of pushed through their congressional process really, really quickly. And they didn't really have a chance to put forth their normal stance or their normal debates that they would have had against such a contract. So the main thing that the Panamanian people really are upset about is the lack of transparency with that, having been pushed through the process really quickly. They have some environmental concerns, okay? And then they also have concerns about the look of this being like colonialism, because the mining company is really a lease, but the people look at it as if the mining company is actually going to have control of that land for 20 years and up to potentially 40 years. And so what they do not want is a repeat of the situation with the Panama Canal, where they see it as, okay, there was the canal zone, there was this huge natural resource that a foreign country was in control of, that they did not have any kind of control of. So that's what they see this as, a form of colonialism coming back. And that is one of the main reasons why people are pushing back against it. Also, there is a sentiment that the contract is actually unconstitutional. So when you look at the previous contract, it was ruled unconstitutional. The initial mining contract that was in Panama was ruled unconstitutional. That was all the way back in 1997. And it was said that the contract was an example of a one-sided document that did not benefit the Panamanian state or its citizens. So they did make some changes to introduce some things into their mining code as a result of this. So the people feel like, this law, any kind of mining law that came subsequent to this should be null and void, because it is also, in their view, unconstitutional. So let's take a quick look here at some of what is being reported regarding this contract.
Massive land concession, almost the size of the city of Miami. They say it's a handout to a foreign company, an attack on Panama's sovereignty, and a threat to the environment.
Como panameña me hace sentir triste, ya que está acabando con todos los recursos naturales, con todos los animales, y no todos estamos de acuerdo con esa ley, la cual nuestro presidente ya firmó sin haber consultado primero al pueblo, y tristemente pues al pueblo le queda solamente luchar por el pueblo.
The people in the streets say they will not back down. They have just one demand: revoke the new contract.
Mientras que el gobierno no firme la derogación de la ley que aprueba la minería, nos mantenemos en la calle unidos, porque un pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
Okay, so there you go. So that, kind of give you some background, on the mine and the situation, to give you a little bit more information. This particular mine opened operations in 2019. They are producing about 300,000 tons of copper from that mine per year. In terms of where the mine is located, let's see if we can show you that. It is located in the Colón province near the Coclé border here. So that's west of Panama City is where it's located. So another concern that the citizens have here as a result of this contract is future mining projects, because this mine is about the size, as they mentioned there in the news report from the Real News Network, giving them credit for their reporting there. It's about the size of the city of Miami. It's an open pit mine. So there are concerns about the environment. Let's take another look at it here. Let you all see just the vastness of it in this video here. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty huge. There's this helicopter flyover that is being done here. So they again have environmental concerns with the mine. It does, like I said, produces 300,000 tons of copper per year. It may also surprise many that this particular mine produces 1.5% of the world's copper ore. So Panama, even for a country of its size, of its small stature, it does pack a big punch, as we've noted in the past. In fact, Panama is actually the 8th largest producer of copper ore in the world. Let's try to see if I can find that and show you all that here. Copper exports, and here it is. So you have number 1 is Chile, Peru, Australia, Indonesia, Canada, this is a Canadian company, Mexico, Brazil, and Panama, followed by the United States at number 9. So this is just to give you, an idea of what we're talking about here. It's not chump change that we're talking about here with respect to this mine, these mining projects. Talking about a lot of money. And so once the government approved the contract on October the 20th, the people took to the streets in protest. And so let's take a little bit of a look at some of that, just to give you an idea of how massive these protests are. Okay, so there you go. This just give you an idea of the vastness of these protests. Now, these protests are largely peaceful protests. The main thing that the people do, they do march, but Panama, I have to give them some credit. They march with a purpose. They're either going to march or they're just going to block the road. So the main road here is the Interamericana Highway, which basically moves goods throughout the country. It's the main thoroughfare for doing that. So they know how to hit the government in the pocket. So when they have something that they want to protest, they don't just march and talk or whatever. They actually take some action. These protests are well organized. They'll even put out like the day before or whatever. It's like, hey, we're going to be blocking the road in this city, this city, this city, this city at this time. And, to kind of let people know when to avoid it if they can, because they are hurting themselves with this process. Because, you have schools that are closed. You have the national holiday here that's just coming up. Panama celebrates 2 Independence Days, one from Spain and one from Colombia. The first of those days is coming up here this weekend. They've already canceled the national parade and events surrounding that. There's a lot of other events that have been canceled. Folks having a hard time, getting to work. So they do hurt themselves by doing these protests, but it's a means to an end. So I really do have to give Panamanian people a lot of credit for their unity, and their resolve in doing this. And so the other thing about it is that it basically, they blocking off the road. They're blocking off produce, say from getting from an area called Cerro Punta, which is Panama's, they call it Panama's breadbasket. Like 25 to 30% of the country's crops are grown in Cerro Punta. Those are trucked east toward Panama City, in our area Coronado as well. And then on the flip side, because you have the huge ports in Colón and in Balboa Port of Panama City, where a lot of imported goods come in, and also things like gasoline and all of that. Those types of goods are put on a truck and they're sent west toward David, Boquete, and those areas. So what's happening is, or what's about to happen, it happened in a protest last year. If these protests continue, what is going to happen is that produce is going to have a difficult time getting east toward this direction, and the gas and some other products are going to have trouble going the opposite direction. So they got severe gas shortages in David, Boquete, areas like Bocas del Toro, why you're going to see produce not on the shelves, in our area. Here you even have one gentleman here. These are, I believe, are cucumbers. She can't get through because the road is blocked, so the produce is no longer any good. They're tossing this stuff out on the side of the road. You'll see them pan to the right here in a minute, and you'll see where other people have dumped, some of their produce and everything as well that could not make it through due to the road blockages. So, that's kind of what's going on. Let's dive into it a little bit more here with some feedback from the National Assembly, as well as the protesters themselves. So let's check this out.
Las manifestaciones sociales van a crecer como la sombra cuando el sol declina. Y es lo que estamos observando afuera de la Asamblea y todo el día de hoy a lo largo de la geografía nacional. Porque esta Asamblea y el gobierno que controla el país no ha querido escuchar el clamor del pueblo panameño que sigue diciendo que Panamá no es un país minero y que no quiere el contrato minero.
Okay, so you have the contract that was approved through Assembly Nacional on the 20th and the president on October the 20th, which they kind of slid through over the weekend. That was kind of coming up like on a Friday. On Tuesday, I believe that was the 24th, on Tuesday, the president addressed the country. And what he basically did is said, okay, for the future, we won't have any more mining contracts in the future, and all of, the projects that are currently in the approval process are going to be rejected. So it was more or less like a moratorium on the mining. It wasn't necessarily rolling back the law that was already signed in for all of the mining that is already taking place right now, which is really what the people want. The people want the law to be totally repealed and pulled back. So here then is the article after the president spoke there. So Panama orders a halt to new mining projects as protests grow. So that was the first step that he took. Also, as part of that, he announced that some of that $375 million that they're getting from First Quantum as early as November, that they were going to see basically a 75% increase in the pensions for about 120,000 people here that are basically on their more or less like their Social Security or their pension program, that they were going to see what's equivalent to about a 75% increase in their funds. So let's take a look at what the president and some of the protesters had to say.
Hoy anuncio al país que a partir del 20 de noviembre de este año, este aumento será una realidad para 120.315 jubiladas y jubilados que reciben menos de 350 balboas al mes.
But it only fueled the fire in the streets. Most Panamanians saw the proposed measure as an attempt to buy off retirees while ignoring the central demand of the protest. Roads and major portions of the Pan American Highway remain blocked across the country.
Estamos hablando de la entrega de nuestra tierra, de la entrega de nuestro país a una transnacional. Por eso, Vendepatria, aquí nos encontramos hoy hasta que el gobierno, hasta los protagonistas que aprobaron la ley, la suelten. Porque sin lucha, no hay victoria. Pelea es peleando, pelea es peleando. Esta lucha no es de uno, esta lucha es de todos. Esta lucha no es de uno. Esta lucha es de todos.
Okay, so as you all can see, you know, the people are quite serious about this. You know, Panamanians, as we told you all before, are extremely patriotic, and you know, they do not want their national territory to be tampered with, or what they feel like is exploited, no matter what the cost. And so, you know, the president tried to quell, you know, a lot of the protests with that. Didn't work. So that was on Tuesday. So the protests actually ramped up some. So then there was another announcement for the president. He spoke to the country again on Saturday. This is the 28th. And so basically what came out of that is that the president decided to call a referendum on the copper mine. Let's just basically listen to what he had to say here.
Para que los panameños decidamos con el poder del voto si se deroga o no se deroga la ley 406 del contrato minero.
Okay, so let me get that for you here in English. Basically what he said. So he decided to put it more or less, hey, we can put it to a vote, right? That's what he's saying. Here he is, President Nito Cortizo, and reading this to you in English here, he says, I've listened with respect to those who oppose the Panama mining contract law. I believe in democracy. And as president, I understand the cry of the voices that speak about the individual. For the majority will to be expressed in the most democratic way, I will request the Electoral Court to convene a popular consultation on Sunday, December 17, 2023, so that Panamanians can decide with the power of the vote whether or not to abolish Law 406, which is the law that approved this latest mining contract. And he goes on to say, through citizen participation, by voting, we will be able to legitimize the will of the people, the result of which will be mandatory compliance. The people are sovereign. So I do like what he said there when he says that the people are sovereign, because the true strength of any country, you know, different countries have different resources. They have different, you know, levels of military power and all of this other thing. But the true measure of a country's strength, in my opinion, is its people. So, you know, this is something that clearly, you know, the Panamanian people are in lockstep on opposing. And so let's get another article here on that. Let's see. So he asked the Electoral Court to convene to prepare for this special vote on this particular mining contract. But the Electoral Court said that they cannot hold a mine referendum. And what they basically came back with is saying that, I'll just read the quote here. At this moment, there are no conditions to organize the intended popular consultation. The Electoral Authority said in a statement Monday, also citing logistics and other legal reasons that prevent the organization of a referendum. So when they say that there are logistics, so they're citing logistics as a reason for not doing it, and that is because Panama's national elections are coming up here in May. So that particular board, the Electoral Court, you know, they're busy preparing for the national election, which is going to be a presidential election also in May. So there's that. And then when they say that there's legal ramifications for them doing it, they say that, you know, they more or less don't believe that they legally, you know, have the right to just organize this type of a vote. So what they did is that they went back basically to say, hey, it's not a law that we do this. You guys have to sign something in the law which tells us that we can proceed with this type of a vote before we can organize it. So that is currently what is in process, is that the legislators in the Assembly Nacional are organizing, you know, a more or less like a bill that's going to allow the electoral board to convene and have this special vote that the president wants to have on December the 17th. And so that is currently what is in process here. The other thing of note here is that as a result of the president making this announcement that they're going to take this whole thing to a vote, that the law could be repealed and all of that. As a result of that, First Quantum, as you can see here, saw their stock plummet by 31% on October the 30th. Took a huge dip there. So these people are scrambling. You know, you can imagine what's happening with this particular company. Their stock took a 31% dip, basically like in one day. So, you know, it's a pretty, you know, it's an interesting situation going on here. It's changing by the minute. It is like living a real life soap opera, except it's very real problems. So it's not fictional. But the other thing I kind of want to point out here is the economic impact. So what the Panamanian people are asking for here is the repeal of this particular law, have the mine shut down. They say, hey, we don't need it. Okay, but this mine, as I pointed out to you, accounts for 1.5% of the world's copper ore. They also mine some gold and everything out of there as well. Panama, for a country of its size, does produce a decent amount of gold also. So what they would be losing out on by repealing this, as we said, is the minimum $375 million annually for 20 years. That was going to be renewable for another 20 years. And a piece of that is that, you know, this mining industry right now accounts for 5% of Panama's GDP, or 5% of their economy or gross domestic product. So they would essentially be throwing away 5% of their gross domestic product. But that is the sacrifice that the people are willing to make, you know, in order to preserve the environment, keep their integrity, and you know, keep what they perceive as, you know, attempts to colonize their country and take advantage of their country, to keep that totally out of the picture as being a possibility. So that's kind of what this is all about. So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you in terms of moving to Panama and everything like that? Well, we did note in our video of our 12 reasons why expats leave Panama, we did note that protest is one of the reasons why, because it can be somewhat of an annoyance if you're trying to get to the airport, trying to travel around, the roads blocked. You know, some people may have been stuck on the road for 6, 7, 8 hours at a time. You know, if they aren't paying attention to know where the blockages are. So from that standpoint, I get it. But on the other standpoint, coming from a standpoint of an expat, I believe that we as expats just need to stay out of this. You know, we can have our opinion. We need to kind of keep our opinion kind of tight to ourselves, especially if it's a negative one regarding topics like this, because this is something that the Panamanians need to work out with their government. It's between the Panamanian citizens and their government. So yes, we live here. We're impacted by it, but it's not something that we should have a major say about, or that we should try to have a major say about. So all we can do is just adjust. I don't see this as any reason why you should not consider Panama as your expat destination. You should move forward with that, because, I mean, overall it's great. Like I said, these protests are largely peaceful. You know, you basically they may burn some tires in the street to make smoke. It looks really bad. You may have a little bit of looting going on at some small stores and things like that in the city, but, you know, it's largely not violent at all in terms of these protests. Very few Panamanians own guns, you know, so it's not a situation like you have, say, I got to compare it to the United States, where there is a protest and you have people out there, you know, they're marching and they just, you know, looting on a large scale, breaking windows, burning down whole sections of their own neighborhoods, businesses, things like that, to where National Guard troops have to be called in and all of these types of things. So, It's not a situation that's like that. Like I said, the protests are largely very peaceful. They're very organized. Unlike those I've seen, back in the States. So I will not let this deter you in any way from moving to Panama or considering Panama as your expat destination. In some ways, you can look at it as a positive when you look at, again, the people and the resolve of the people, the ability of the people to unite in such a way that I don't think is personally possible back, in my home country, to see what the people have been able to do here. So you should absolutely delay, your exploratory trip if you are planning one. You should wait it out. We're going to continue to report on this, as things break. Like I said, it's a fast moving news story. We'll see what happens, with the announcement in terms of the government having the vote on December 17th, whether to repeal the law or not, whether the protests will continue on this large of a scale. We don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say yes, because I think the people have their foot on the gas until this thing is, repealed. That's basically what I believe is going to happen here. So we'll see what happens as we approach December 17th. We will keep you all posted. And once again, we want to ask you all to like, subscribe, comment down below, and remind you all that we do still have enrollments for our Panama relocation online course. If interested, you can scan the QR code that is on your screen, or you can go to our website at PanamaRelocationOnlineCourses.com for more information. And with that, we will catch you all on the next one.
Te quiero a ti, a ti, a ti, a ti, a ti.